Welcome back to Tri-City Sports Now. I'm Marky Bilson, 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. We own the Tri-Cities because, something happens, Titans fire their coach. What do we got? We got Joe Rexrode giving us the skinny. Right there. Competition, they didn't know about it for their entire show. Think about that. That's why you listen here. Tri-City Sports Now. I want to, though, get this straight. One coach named Mike inherits a team. They're 5-27 when he takes them over. Goes to the playoffs. Wins a game in the playoffs. And then he gets the axe. First playoff victory for the franchise in 13 years. 2004. But then there's this other head coach named Mike. He's in the NFL. He's got the best roster in all of football. And because of the lack of discipline on his team, which is not a problem. Well, you got Delaney Walker maybe, but even, But because of the lack of discipline on this team, also coached by a man named Mike, this team with the best roster in the NFL doesn't win in the playoffs. But he's untouchable. Would you like to explain that to me? Would you really? I've got a phone line here. It's 423-743-6124. I'd love to hear from you because I want somebody to explain that to me. Of course, who I'm mentioning, Mike Mularkey, late of the Tennessee Titans by a couple of hours, and Mike Tomlin, coach for life of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Criticism with Mularkey, okay. It's QB. You heard Joe Rexrode talk about it. Marcus Mariota hasn't developed into a true star. Threw more interceptions than TDs in 2017. 13-15. Titans did nothing but except garbage time second half on Saturday. Maybe Mularkey if they have a better performance in one half. It's the Patriots, for crying out loud. I thought that it would be a more competitive game. I did think that the Titans would cover. I will tell you that. I got the pick wrong. Fine. But honestly, you're firing the coach that took you to the playoffs because of one half so you can hire Josh McDaniels when the disciples of Bill Belichick all lay eggs in the NFL. Even Saban was 15-17. That's all he was. I just got to ask, what point do we blame the coaches? What point do we blame the players? And I understand, what if they took Josh McDaniel from the Colts? Yeah, it would send the Colts into disarray, and the more the Colts are in disarray, the better off the Titans and everybody else in the AFC South is going to be. I get that. But you're fighting over someone who honestly comes from a track record of failure. The former Belichick assistants. Now, the Titans, before Mularkey became the head coach, lost with Marcus Mariota. It's very likely Mariota's stats were inflated because of the offense that Oregon ran. His college stats, they were likely inflated because of the offense that, Chip Kelly and stuff that Oregon runs. And I think that Mariota is destined to be the scrappy quarterback in the NFL. Think Jim McMahon, okay? Scrappy quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be the 4,500-yard passer. I also realize Tennessee Titans, their future depends not on Mularkey, not really even on McDaniels or whoever comes in. Their future depends on Mariota. It's always the quarterback. You go into the quarterback versus the coach, you go with the quarterback. You go with the player. I've talked about this before. I realize, though, Mularkey's offense was conservative, but something? He was Matt Ryan's offensive coordinator, and that worked out okay. Doesn't keeping that guy into the fold sound wise? Make the playoffs the first time in 10 years, and then you can the coach. To me, That's the sign of a dysfunctional organization. And I think we know the Titans historically have been a dysfunctional organization. It's why they're the Tennessee Titans and not the Houston Oilers. We talked about McDaniels possibly already committed to the Colts in the first place. He was already talking about, hiring Matt Eberflus, who's the linebackers coach of the Dallas Cowboys, making him his defensive coordinator with Indianapolis. But, to me, I just look at this and I say, there's a reason why the Titans, there have been 52 Super Bowls, and the Titans/Oilers have played in a grand total of one of them. After actually starting out pretty well, because, didn't they win the first two AFL championships way back when, and I know that George Blanda, I get it, it's a long time ago, but, what point is franchise got off onto the right foot and didn't do anything after that, Earl Campbell can't get past the Steelers. Even when the Steelers start to get old, they still can't get past the Raiders now. It's just, get the run and shoot. Warren Moon can't get to the title game. It's just, they were always, it seems like this franchise, 12-4 in 2008, and they can't win a playoff game. They lose their first one to the Ravens. There's always something that prohibits the Titans from being elite. I talk about it, I say, the Titans really the team in Upper East Tennessee? I can show you Facebook maps, show counties where the Cowboys are more popular. I can go and show you Facebook maps on Southwest Virginia where the Steelers are more popular. Certainly Western North Carolina becomes the Panthers all the way. That's not a surprise, but I'm just saying, and I do want to talk about, this is the news of the hour, and it does have a local content, and we can cover it well, but, the Titans always, do we really think that this is a franchise that is now going to compete with the Patriots because they're going to bring in a new coach, be it McDaniels or whoever? In a way, I look at this as like when Jeff Fisher got the axe, and then the reason why Bud Adams thought Vince Young was better than he really was. That put the franchise into a tailspin. I don't know if this is going to put the franchise into a tailspin. I still think they have a pretty good roster. But they're just, you make the playoffs, you do what you're supposed to, and then you get the axe. I just don't get that. I realize Mularkey isn't Vince Lombardi. But let me just ask you this. Really, let's put Josh McDaniels on the Titans on Saturday. Let's put Bill Belichick on the Titans. And let's put Mularkey on the Patriots. Let's trade coaches. Let's put Terry Robisky as the offensive coordinator. Let's put Dick LeBeau as the Patriots defensive coordinator. Do you really think the Titans win the game if we swap coaching staffs? Really? Do you honestly think that? That wouldn't have happened. I said it to Rex Road, if you tune in late, if I'm the Titans. And I know John Robinson, and McDaniels probably go back a ways. But, there's no guarantee you're going to get McDaniels. Supposedly, Indianapolis has him. I know Rex Road said, I don't know if they fire Mularkey or they say, no, you're not coming back if they don't have an in on McDaniels. But then again, with this organization, who knows? And what I'd do if you can't get him, I'd make that phone call up to State College, Pennsylvania, and say, James Franklin, want to come back to Nashville. Want to be a head coach in the pros. Want to go to the next level. Nashville, that move would be popular, positive, and progressive. It would create a buzz. It would also give the NFL a much-needed shot in the arm. You'd be putting in a personality. And remember, I've talked about this last year. Where is personality coach in the NFL? I guess we're getting it with John Gruden. Someone said Mike Tomlin was that personality coach. I'll say this. You trade Belichick and Mularkey, that divisional playoff game, New England, Tennessee, the loser doesn't win that game. You swap Mike Tomlin and Doug Marion, and the Steelers are playing in the AFC Championship game. I have had it up to here with Mike Tomlin. Let's see here. They got the best pass rush in the NFL. 56 sacks, leads the NFL. They got the best wide receiver in Antonio Brown. I know this stuff is subjective and all that. What about Odell Beckham Jr. or someone? I get that. But you see this man, half a leg, getting out of bed with the flu, and the catches he made against Jacksonville. If he ain't the best, he's in the top 2, Best running back, Le'Veon Bell. Again, you want to give me, Todd Gurley or whoever. You want to give me somebody else as the top running back. Fine, it's subjective, but you got to admit Bell is right up there. Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense this year ranked 5th overall in the NFL. Fact of the matter is, no team has more talent on their roster than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not the Patriots, not the Jaguars, not the Eagles, not the Vikings, not the Saints. And Mike Tomlin is not getting the maximum out of it. Instead, the Pittsburgh Steelers show every sign of a very poorly coached team. And, we had Cody Sensabaugh on. You can see the interview on our 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities archives. And I asked, what about playing the level of your opponent? Well, blah, 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 No real answer. Just passing off the question. And I understand. A player's going to probably give that answer. You'd love to see that'll never happen again. And I also understand the NFL, the any given Sunday, and that the level between even, say, the Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots is much more even than, let's say, Alabama and Tennessee in the Southeastern Conference. Or Georgia and Tennessee in the Southeastern Conference. Oh, it really is. Cleveland didn't win any games this year, but be honest with you, they're probably not losing 41-0 to the Patriots. Heck, they almost beat the Steelers in the last week of the season. And for that matter, in the first week of the season as well. And that's probably a reason why you should see that the Steelers aren't that good of a team under Mike Tomlin. Every sign of a poorly coached team. Playing to the level of your opponent is the very first. Okay, I understand every now and then team's going to rise up, but it happens so consistently. Before this year, under Mike Tomlin, teams that the Steelers played that were 500 or less, the Steelers were 23-23 against. This year they beat them, but just barely, and they actually lost to the Bears. The Steelers cannot, not only do they play to the level of their opponents against bad teams, they just can't beat the Patriots. They give 55 points to them in a game, for crying out loud. They let lacrosse players beat them. And all the while, what happens? The Steelers then, what is their persona? Arrogance? Not being focused? They point fingers. On Friday, I said Jags Steelers. That was a matchup at the Tortoise and the Hare. Somehow I went against Aesop and I chose the Hare. I said, you know what? I did the numbers. I was about ready. I looked at this. I said, boy, these numbers are really even. Jaguars really match up well with the Steelers. And look here. Jaguars are plus 10 in the turnover ratio this year. Steelers are plus 2. Take the Jaguars, Markey. It's going to be cold. They're going to run the ball. Take the Jaguars. And then I look at that turnover ratio and I said, you know what? I just trust Ben Roethlisberger not to make the late pick more than I trust Blake Bortles to not make the late pick. And I saw where Leonard Fournette had only rushed for 100 yards in one of the last 6 games. And so I chose the Steelers close. Didn't say they'd cover 24-17. I said the Jaguars would cover, is what I'm trying to get to. And I am kicking myself. I'm absolutely kicking myself because I really did, see Like I said, the Steelers, they were talking about playing the Patriots before they played the Jaguars, for crying out loud. Total unfocus. That is a reflection of the coach, not the coordinator, the coach. I'm hearing people say, well, they should fire coordinators in Pittsburgh. You know what? The offensive coordinator that supposedly doesn't get along with Ben Roethlisberger just put up 42 points on the board. You want to get rid of him? Really? That's the guy you want to get rid of? Really? Who hired that offensive coordinator? Who'd he get rid of? Oh, yeah, since Bruce Arians and Dick LeBeau left, the Steelers haven't been back to the Super Bowl, but they still have Mike Tomlin. What's the constant there? And yet we have praise after praise after praise. Colin Cowherd has talked about this. Why can't we criticize Mike Tomlin? If he was coaching the Denver Broncos, John Elway would have canned him long ago. There was Le'Veon Bell talking about the day before, I'm going to retire if I don't get a good contract. That's the message you want going into the playoffs. No. And then you have his tweet out there talking about the day before playing the Jaguars, let's have a rematch with the Patriots. Yeah, that's a focus team. That's good coaching. That's nothing. 6 weeks ago, Tomlin did the same thing. Said that we ought to win it all. Play the Patriots twice. So the onus is on you, Mike. It's totally on you. Maybe that kind of comment, we like it in the media. It's refreshing. Is it good coaching? Absolutely not. Fact of the matter is the Steelers shouldn't have played the Jaguars on Sunday. This has nothing to do with the fact that Jesse James, did he score the touchdown, did he not against the Patriots, all that. That doesn't mean, no. It does have to do, by the way, that after that play, basic clock management 101, the Steelers and Tomlin screwed up by not having 2 plays called. You saw the pick that Roethlisberger threw. There you go. That's another egregious mistake by Mike Tomlin. That loss was on Tomlin. But back in September, Steelers went to Chicago playing the lowly Bears. They were defeated in overtime by a former Chuck Noll assistant, by the way, John Fox. If you remember the circumstances right after the president, Donald Trump, had said of players who dealt for the anthem, get that son of a B off the field now. Out. You're fired. Remember that quote? Okay. And supposedly Mike Tomlin was just so upset about that. Oh my goodness, he called football players SOBs. No, not collectively. The ones that kneel for the anthem. And you know what, Mike Tomlin? You're from BMI. You were an assistant there. You ought to side with the president in that. But instead, Tomlin let his personal politics take over. The locker room was tremendously divided. They stayed in the Soldier Field locker room for the anthem. They let it disrupt them. All except for Alejandro Villanueva, the Army Ranger, got a Bronze Star. He stood for the anthem. Along with outside Mike Tomlin. He was one of 5 coaches that went out and stood for the anthem. And then somehow, after that, Mike Tomlin decided to criticize the Patriot, Alejandro Villanueva, and back him so much into a corner. And the reason why he criticized him, he didn't stand with his team. Well, what were you doing, Mike? You were out there on the field. Why weren't you in the locker room? If you're going to criticize Villanueva, he did the same thing you did. But you criticize Villanueva? And then you have the audacity to say Villanueva didn't stand with his team. This, a year after Villanueva was praised, and Tomlin said, we're not kneeling for the anthem. That would be disrespectful to Alejandro Villanueva. Can you say hypocrite, boys and girls? I mean, I am livid. Mike Tomlin let his personal politics get in the way of properly preparing his team against the Bears. That's why they lost. It's a divide that clearly had the Steelers playing disorientated football, but they played disorientated football throughout the season. Let's look at the Titans game, the one that they did win by a lot of points. Remember, Sensabaugh makes the pick, and then Later, he's beaten for a long touchdown. Cody Sensabaugh from Kingsport. Where's the consistency? Had the Steelers beaten the Bears, had they not let the comment that basically most pro football fans agreed with, and for that matter, he calls people who kneel for the anthem SOBs. Oh, big deal. You're offended by that. Really? Really? After a year of being an assistant coach at VMI, you're offended by that. Snowflake Tomlin. And you let it disrupt your entire team, and you lose to the Chicago Bears, and that's why you're not the number 1 seed, and that's why you don't play the Titans, that's why you got to play the Jaguars, and that's why you lose? Tomlin should be fired immediately. The Steelers haven't fired a coach since '68. It's painfully obvious they need to now. That's my take. And frankly, I don't like to come off as, because I know I'm in Tennessee and I used to live in Pittsburgh. I used to cover the Steelers. And, I have season tickets to them. I mean, I've always been, why'd they get into sports? I've talked about this on their 1979 City of Champions year. Pittsburgh moved to Pittsburgh. My mom was a fellow at Pitt. She's now a professor at ETSU. And, the circumstance was infectious. I wasn't even a sports fan before then. I became one, because of the circumstance. I mean, that's why I'm here. It's that, the Steelers and the Pirates from that era. And it's just become a very unlikable team. Mouthy, the hypocrite coach. It's just awful. And for them to lose to the Jaguars, you could see it coming a mile away. I think the Jaguars are the best defense in the NFL. And they're not respecting that. And look at what all the Jaguars players were even saying about this going into they were like, why in the world, what are you doing here? I mean, here's Jalen Ramsey, for instance. And he could not figure out, he was talking about how the Steelers' overconfidence publicly motivated the Jaguars.
I was kind of wondering why they were so confident, because we stomped their ass last time, and we knew we was going to do the same this time. I mean, we were confident going in the game. I can't tell you why they were so confident, but that went out the door real quick.
Oh, I can, because they're poorly coached. Very poorly coached. No, the Steelers don't get rid of football coach. Noel was there for 23 years, and Cowher was there for 15, and now Tomlin's been there for 11 and all that. Well, he's had his lengthy time. It's just, you got to look at what the Broncos have done with Elway. John Fox, the coach that beat Tomlin this year, with lesser players, he was relieved, and the Broncos go out and win the Super Bowl when they're winning. I mean, look what the Titans are doing now. It's controversial. They will either sink or swim. But you know what? With Tomlin, Steelers aren't getting past the Patriots. Tomlin is old Don Shula. Remember Don Shula when he had Dan Marino? Couldn't win. Couldn't go win the Super Bowl. Made it once. Every year the Dolphins underachieved. Remember that? Had the great quarterback, could not get the most out of him. That's Tomlin today. He's living off 2008. Even that Super Bowl, they had a 9-7 team that they faced up against. They were 12-4 and they barely beat them. Lost a 10-point halftime lead. This is not a good coach, folks. Colin Cowherd says it. Terry Bradshaw says it. Jason Whitlock says it. I'm saying it. And there comes a time where we really need to reevaluate this. Hey, Steelers are always going to be under the Patriots' thumb as long as Mike Tomlin is a coach there. There's no denying that. Tri-City Sports Now.
Tennessee Arts and Heritage Center provides regional artists and craftspeople with a space for working, displaying, and selling their creations. You can visit the gift shop to purchase these unique items. Get involved and come explore Tennessee's rich culture at the Tennessee Arts and Heritage Center, located at the Unicoi Information and Visitor Center in Unicoi, Tennessee.
From the backwoods to the city streets, Firestone Destination Tires take you anywhere you want to go.
Design